conversation this hour takes us to the skies, and we have had several conversations with Kenya Airways over the last couple of years, as things were interesting. Otherwise, let's have a look into that. And joining us for that conversation is Dickson Murianki, who is the director cargo of Kenya Airways. Good morning, Dickson.
Good morning to you.
Karibu sana.
Asante. Thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you for being here this morning. It's interesting that you're here, and we're talking about, we're going to be talking about a number of things, obviously. But even as we do, as Kenya Airways takes to the skies, this man, CT, takes to the skies every week, and he goes to a different African country. You should actually think about, endorsing him to take him around. And when he comes back with proverbs from every country that he's gone to. Mm-hmm. And so we're in a different country this week. So he's going to give you the proverb for today. You tell us what you think about it. Okay. And then you let us know how you can start flying him around every week to do his his thingamajig. To do his thingamajig. So perhaps that's a conversation we can actually have.
That's something we can take offline.
I think so. You see how we do the business?
Yes.
All right, real quick.
This offline thing is good.
It's very good.
Yes.
In the meantime, CT will give us a proverb. You tell us what you think about it. Let's give you a little bit of homework, or actually hear work for the morning. Okay.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week, which will end on Friday, are from the Republic of Djibouti. A fantastic country. Very pivotal at the Horn of Africa. The proverb: the wasp says, many trips to a mud pit enables us to build a house. The wasp says, many trips to a mud pit enables us to build a house.
Interesting. I didn't know wasps speak, but I'll take it to be the African way of communicating.
Yes, it is.
And I love the country of Djibouti you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's a country we serve. I'll talk about it as we continue, because it's one of the countries we serve as Kenya Airways cargo. And what do I think about that proverb? Many trips to the mud pit
yes,
makes a house. Yeah, it's like the Swahili saying, "Aba na aba ujaza kibaba." So when you see great things, they don't just appear. It takes effort, it takes time, it takes, persistence and consistency to bring them to being. And sometimes people may give up on the way because, going to a mud pit, you become muddy, and nobody likes being muddy, but it pays to do the hard work. And I can tell you, City, that's what we do in KQ Cargo. We'll roll up our sleeves and do the real heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. And so I can relate to the wasp.
Thank you.
How's that for landing it? Well, so I guess getting into the conversation, Dickson, we can just do a little bit of a backtrack. Over the last 10 years, it's been a difficult space, and then we saw that in 2024, for the first time in 11 years, and this was towards the end, for the first time in 11 years, Kenya Airways posted a profit, right? And that things were doing a little bit better over time. And if we go beyond that, we've had a couple of conversations with Alan, and he told us, one of the things that they wanted to insist on to do, one of the things that Kenya Airways wanted to insist on doing, was upping its cargo, seeing ways in which they could use this service to serve the region, to serve the world. So from what you have seen, has lifted Kenya Airways from this place where it was at loss to now where it's posting profit, and is it a true profit?
Thank you. And I have to give credit where it belongs. Alan, leading the team that is leading, has done quite a lot of heavy lifting, gone to the mud pit, literally, to bring Kenya Airways to a place where at least we can raise our heads above the waters and hopefully, touch wood, this is going to continue. So what has been happening? Kenya Airways has been in a restructuring journey, and one thing which has been consistent, and I can talk of the recent past, is just staying focused and trying to look at what businesses we are in and what we can do and how we can do it better and for less. It's not been easy. I've been in Kenya quite some time. I can tell you I've been in Kenya for over 24 years. So I've seen it all, so to speak. And the 10 years you talk about, has been a struggle from the times we used to post quite some good profits to the time it went down. I will not go into the details of that. Let's look at what is happening. So what has happened is that focusing on the core business, focusing on empowering people, focusing on listening and understanding our customers. And Alan talked about focusing on cargo, and I can tell you, he put me under a lot of pressure because he told me he wanted cargo to contribute more over 20% of the turnover of the company. And we had the discussion and said, yeah, it can do that, but we have to enable it. And I'll tell you what happened, the most significant thing that happened last year. We invested in cargo aircraft only, additional capacity. We add two, which we've had for the longest, since 2011, I guess. So from 2011, we only added last year 2 more. And the ones we added at what we call 737-800 with a better capacity, an increased range. They can fly for 6-7 hours non-stop with a load of 20 tons. Previously, we had Boeing 737-300 freighters. We still have them, but these were previously passenger aircraft in Kenya, which were converted back in 2011 into cargo aircraft. They have limitation in terms of their technology and even their capacity. They can lift a maximum of 14 tons, and they could only fly within Africa radius of, say, 4 hours range. Let me say 4 hours range. That's where they could go. So they could not fly actually beyond the Douala. If we had to go to Lagos, they had to stop over somewhere and the like, and that's in additional cost. So the investment in cargo has been deliberate, and hopefully we are going to see more. We are not yet where we would want to be.
Let me ask the question. The investment in cargo is part of a plan.
Yes.
All right. Now, when you have a plan, there are details of the plan.
Yes.
Walk us through this process. Why cargo? Why the focus? Because I'm assuming you didn't take your eye off the passenger business, but the focus was now on cargo. Why?
Yes, that's true and right. We did not take the eyes off the passenger business. It's more of diversification with intention. So why cargo? I would step back and say, and give some information about our country and where we are positioned. In Africa, and I don't have the 2024 statistics, but I have information from 2023. Jomo Kenyatta Airport was ranked the first in terms of volume of exports. So that tells you we are sitting in a gold mine, so to speak. They are major exports, and we are known globally for export. And I know we're known very well for export of flowers, cut flowers, and floricultural and horticultural products. And I think the statistics which I have, even not wrong, were over 360 million tons exported in 2023. I'm yet to get the statistics for 2024, but that in itself says there is demand. But again, let's look at it. Why invest in cargo? One thing is we realize that the cargo business in itself has a bigger role to play, even in the mission of the airline, which is to propel Africans' prosperity by connecting its culture, people, and market. and we want to live true to our mission. So that's another imperative which led us even into focusing on cargo. But I will agree with you that it's not that just today that we started thinking about cargo. We've been on it for the longest. The only reason is when you have limited resources, where do you allocate the resources? Remember, in the last 12 years ago, we went big in investing in modernizing the passenger fleet. At that time, there was the thought that we will onboard also cargo fleet, but well, we faced the headwinds, and it's what it is.
Okay, it is what it is. You see, where I'm going with this is,
Yes, sir.
if there was a plan, and you've taken us to say a little earlier on, in around 2011, that was before COVID.
Yes.
Now, during COVID, the business that made a lot of sense was cargo.
Sure.
People were not moving,
Yep.
cargo was moving. Now, nobody could have foreseen COVID. But those who responded to COVID appropriately made windfall profits.
Sure.
How did we respond to COVID?
Thank you. I wish we had done better preparation, as you say, and I agree with you. I wish we had invested more in cargo before COVID. But as it was, we did not just sit down and say, oh, COVID has come, we cannot do that. Actually, we did some things which were unthinkable even in the aviation industry. One, we had moved our fleet to the composite, carbon composite material that makes the Dreamliners, the Boeing 787. And the thought which came, and I will tell you, it came from the idea came from one of my equipment operators, the drivers who drive the tractors. And he asked, why don't we remove seats in this aircraft and put cargo? It looks ridiculous at that time. But it's what it is. All the aircraft were grounded and parked. And in our discussion, we started asking, what can we do? And suggested that. Actually, our engineering team wrote to Boeing, and they said, no, it can't be done. That aircraft cannot be done. But we got on a Canadian firm which said, actually, we have a program which can do that. And I'll tell you, Kenya Airways was the first one to repurpose, we call it repurposing, removing a passenger seat from a passenger seat, a Dreamliner now. The other aircraft, which are more aluminum and the like, I think they could do it easily, but removing in a Dreamliner, we got that program and did it. So we removed seat from 2 of the Dreamliners and started carrying boxes of vegetables, boxes of flowers, where the passengers sit and in the undercarriage. So an aircraft which carries 200 and whatever passengers, we were carrying at least 45 tons of cargo. It's not the most excellent, but we used what we had.
How many Dreamliners do we have?
We have 9 of them.
We have 9 of them.
Yes.
And this gentleman who drives the tractor, did you promote him?
He was commended. And, we have awards by our CEO, and I think, the guy, I think, was commended as one of the brilliant ideas. But we had ideas coming from everywhere.
The reason why I asked the question is because if we were voted as the number one cargo, what were we? Number one cargo what?
African airline?
Yes. Now, when was this?
I think what we got was the word was the last time we had the air cargo, which was 2023.
Yes.
We in Johannesburg. We got an award. I'll have to comment that.
It's all right. You see, the point I'm trying to make is the market was telling us where we need to move.
Yes.
Long before, because if you are number one, it means people bring in cargo. Now, if they bring in cargo, usually there's cargo that also needs to leave. Yes. Now, other airlines were then using our airport to do the business, and yet we were the ones who actually were, should we say, the destination for a lot of this cargo. Anyway, I think that my point is made. Now, let me ask the last question so that my colleagues can also ask their questions. What have we done to remedy this?
Okay. What have we done to remedy the situation? We've started with small steps of investing in the 2 additional cargo capacity. As we speak, and I want to commend the board and actually the government. We are very much supported by the government of Kenya. They supported the addition of aircraft, and I know my CEO, maybe in one of a few days, will be talking to you. We are actually going back to say, hey, we can do better. You buy a pickup and you feel, I can do with a canter. I can do with a big truck. So now we're in the process now of, getting funding or sourcing for funding and, discussing with our owners and financiers how they can fund the growth of cargo. Because I agree with you. We don't want to wait for another COVID so that we say, oh, we wish we did. We need to prepare. And I want to say this. Allow me to use this platform to say that one thing which COVID taught us is you need to have your assets, and especially cargo infrastructure is really... I'm not an expert in national strategy and security, but it's a strategic asset. We saw countries which had access to that capacity. They got the PPEs, they got the life-saving medication before others. We had to rely on others to, first of all, satisfy themselves before they could come to us. And we also saw our vegetables, our flowers, being thrown away in Naivasha and other places which grow them, and our farmers crying. But until we did what we did, and it was not big move, because really the potential is big. I've told you we move on a weekly basis, 1,000 tons out of this market. So we were not moving much, but we need to invest in that. So I agree with you.
Is there, and I think this is one of the things that, because for me, then it would be an answer,
yes, that
is there demand for the cargo services that Kenya Airways offers? Because if it's one of the big areas whereby, it's been said that if you can because again, Pride of Africa, trying to make sure that a regional airline is doing what other regions have been unable to do, and still remains an icon for Kenya, that if cargo is one of the ways in which this can be done, is there an appetite? Is there a market for it? And then is there enough capacity for Kenya Airways to match and meet the market demands?
Good question. Allow me to answer by just laying out the landscape of air freight movement. Unlike a passenger who normally buys a return ticket, cargo is normally one way. So you not send vegetables and bring back the same vegetables. Yeah. But again, with the globalization and the trading, markets are shaping up that you send what you have, you import what you need. So we are big in export, and that's the demand for export is we cannot satisfy it. Just a few weeks ago, in the month of October, November, we had a cry again where our perishable product, the flowers and the vegetables, could not get capacity to the markets in Europe and Asia and the other places. And this was caused by, the realignment of the tools. The freighters, the cargo aircrafts really moved where business is. And they had moved to Asia, to China to satisfy the pre-Christmas and the Thanksgiving demand in the West, and because of the blockade that we have in the Red Sea and the like. So there was actually no capacity, and the producers went all the way to the government. Myself and my boss were called by the the CS and PS, Ministry of Transport, and we asked what we're doing, and we said, guys, capacitate us so that we can be the stopgap in case, because these people will move. Foreigners will, if you rely on foreign carriers, they will move. So I think to answer, there is demand, yes, but we need to build more trade, especially within Africa. And maybe I'll mention that later so that, an aircraft does not go full and come empty.
Yeah.
There's something that you said twice when you talk about the government. You said capacitors. And I keep thinking Kenya Airways is a going concern declaring profits. Well, if I'm a businessman and I'm seeing that there's a lucrative market, it behooves me myself to be able to equip myself to meet the standards of the market. Is Kenya Airways still a baby suckling at the bosom of government? That's my first question. And number two, have we finally solved this issue of ping-ponging between profits and losses?
The second one, I would wait to see. We are in a closed period because Kenya is a quoted company. We wait and see after the release of the result. We'll see if we are ping-ponging or we are now on a trajectory of recovery. But again, about suckling, I think, yes, we are an entity, corporate, but we have our shareholders, and the government is the biggest shareholder. So when we talk about government, I'm referring to them as our shareholder and looking at them to capacitate us. Yes, Mark, we've gone through turbulent years, almost a decade of turbulence, where if you look at the books of Kenya, we have negative equity. So really, it's just like even a grown-up, when you get injured, sometimes you need to be nursed back to your health. So we need to be nursed back to our health.
Okay, let me ask a different question.
Yeah.
This cargo thing is of concern to me.
Yes.
How many wide-body, large-capacity cargo aircrafts do we have?
Unfortunately, we do not have even a single one currently.
So essentially, the cargo challenge cannot actually be met because we do need these aircrafts, don't we?
Yeah. We do need them. We needed them, actually. I agree with you.
Okay, sorry, I'm just going to jump onto that question. So, in order to these what did you call them? Wide-bodied aircraft.
Large capacity cargo aircraft.
So, what are we talking about essentially that would be carried in such an aircraft? What kind of goods are we talking about that would move?
Great, that's a great question. And what would move in this aircraft is, one, our fresh produce. And when I talk of fresh produce, I want to actually give color to what we have, the potential we have, and what we've done. There's the vegetables into the European market, flowers into the European market, and we supply flowers from here to Americas, but more so Europe, the Asia, and Australia. But we may not fly there as Kenya Airways, but we do interline. But Kenya produces such goods which go there. But there's also another element which is not spoken much about. Thankfully, I had an interview with, I think, PS from Trade, and he mentioned about our trade with the UAE. And one of the things which is big in terms of what Kenya moves is goat meat, chilled goat meat.
Okay.
And the demand is so much that we cannot satisfy. I can tell you, out of Nairobi last year, I think Kenya was alone, we moved close to 1.5 million goats. Kenya was alone. And the market could be almost 4 million goats, which move to that. And those people are crying for capacity. So that's another thing which could move. There's potential to move. There is demand for Kenyan products in Asia, seafood. If you're flown with Kenya Airways to Bangkok, Thailand, and Canton in Guangzhou, we call it, is in Guangzhou in China. Underneath the aircraft, we carry tens of tons of seafood from Mozambique, from the Tanzania, from our coast here, and so there's quite a lot that goes out. But there are also things which come back. Not just to Kenya, the Kenyan market, I have to admit, the capacity to absorb the import may not be that big, so to speak, but we're not serving Kenya. We're serving more, so we look at ourselves as serving Africa. The oil and gas industry is a big, consumer of air cargo services. The automobile manufacturing whatever plants in Southern Africa, big consumers. And then there's the pharmaceutical. We really depend so much on pharmaceutical products from especially Asia.
You know, I like the story you're telling. It looks amazing and things like that. But I'm a businessman, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And consistently, what I'm hearing is opportunity, potential, diversity of markets, diversity of products, and just the need to add capacity and things like that. So you're talking about good business, and we're sitting here as a country still not sure about Kenya Airways, when we know, one, JKI is one of the biggest ports of human and cargo transport across the continent. We know it is one of the most secure airports. It has the most capacity. And yet, when we ask the critical question that can we consistently believe in the 500 million shillings profit, I'm not getting a solid answer. And I'm asking myself, why? Because number one, I go to the airport every 2 weeks and I see large volumes of Kenyans and non-Kenyans moving. I see a lot of cargo moving. I see the expectation of cut flowers and different vegetation that cannot be traveled overseas growing. I see the demand in Saudi Arabia growing for meat, especially mutton from our goats. They love our dob goats. So this story is good. The numbers, how can they not be consistent? Can you, okay, so let me put it in another way. What is the financial projection? If Kenya injects, let's say you need wide body aircrafts and they cost 2-3 billion shillings, what can we expect from that? Can you give us what are the numbers? What are we looking at? Because we know seafood has to fly. We know that CT, when he sends flowers to our friend who said big hi, has to send them on a flight. Yeah. So what are the numbers?
Thank you, Christian. And I think let's start with what you've mentioned, a question of 2 billion shillings. Sorry to say, the wide-body aircraft and aircraft really cost much more.
I was just
because somebody may think, oh, I'll give you the money and
you buy a couple.
Quite more. But I hear your question. There is potential, and we need to get into this potential, exploit this potential, and as you say, there is good business. What we need to do is invest. Because if we don't invest, then we'll just be saying, okay, there's potential, but it's being taken by others. Yes, the movement is still taking place. The flowers are still moving. The vegetables are still moving. The mutton is still moving, but it's not being carried by Kenyan carriers. So sorry to say so. The percentage that we are playing as Kenyan carriers is negligible. We need to invest so that we can get into that. And Mark, I want to tell you that I am a firm believer that Kenya Airways is on the rise. I may not, as I said, it's a quoted company. I'm an accountant by training. I know I cannot discuss figures when it's a closed period. But Kenya Airways is rising. But we need to believe in that, and we need to put our support where our belief is. And that's what I'm saying. Our stakeholders, our shareholders, our customers believe in us. I want to tell you, our customers believe in us. They come, I can tell you even today, they are exporters of fresh produce who are coming to meet me and my boss saying, how can we work with you to bring that capacity home? Because they know it. Today, they may be having capacity for the pre-Valentine. Actually, we're in that period. If you go to JKA, there are many aircraft parked there to carry flowers for pre-Valentine. But they say these people will abandon us the moment there is another demand somewhere else. So we need to build our own. I agree with you. We need to build that capacity, and we need to be consistent. Not, one day we're here, next day we're there. Consistency will win us. Let me mention something which I've not said. Do you know, last year, even with our limited capacity within Africa, we moved over 13 million live chicks, day-old chicks, 14.5 million eggs within Africa. So there is capacity to trade more.
There is capacity to trade more. We are having a conversation this morning with Director Cargo Services, Dickson Murianki from Kenya Airways. And as we come back, really, that capacity around Africa and what it actually is then able to do, bringing together people. I think that has been part of the big conversation, isn't it? That how can we actually make trade work better in Africa as a regional airline? We've been talking about, so how did it actually turn around? And you're talking about, the capacity you have, and cargo being one of them. You talked about the pressure that you were given to make sure that you lift this particular element. Trade within Africa's borders has been a big conversation. Also, travel amongst Africa's people has been a big issue, but the cost of it also. So we try to imagine a situation where we look at cargo as one of the things that, will be able to raise the bar and essentially get Kenya Airways out of the doldrums. When it comes to lowering some of the tariffs that we see, lowering how much it would cost for you, for example, to, take product from Nairobi to Cape Town, or from Nairobi and move it just here to Addis Ababa, or Nairobi and move it to Lagos, or move it to Douala, or move it to, Dakar. The cost of it, what conversations are being had around lowering those costs? What conversations are being had around lowering the cost of moving people within Africa? We all know it's cheaper for me to go from Nairobi to Dubai than it is for me to go from Nairobi to Lagos, for example. Why?
Allow me to talk about cargo. That's where...
to move items even.
Yes, the movement of cargo. And I will just share with you some statistics, which I think you already are aware about. Trade within Africa, among African states, is 15% to 18%. We don't trade much within ourselves in Africa. If you compare that with Europe, 60% of their trade is intra-Europe. And I was checking somewhere, and the figure is over €1 trillion in Europe of trade. The African trade, we're talking of just 192 billion, or thereabout. If you look at Asia, trade among Asians or Asian countries is over 40%, going to $4.3 trillion. So one thing is, in Africa, we don't trade enough amongst ourselves. African free continent, or continental free trade area, and the SATAM, some of the, mechanisms or plans that have been devised to open it up. It's happening, but slow, but not at the speed we'd like. But I think we need, as Africans, to believe in ourselves and trade more among ourselves. Let me tell you why the cost is expensive as seen, or as perceived, because it's a perception issue. We say it's a perception because really what is expensive to you may not be expensive to city or different person. But I'll tell you from an operator is, one, I'll take the aircraft, the cargo aircraft I was telling you is 20 tons. It will leave Nairobi to Abidjan or Lagos or Douala full. Coming back, it'll come empty. So the person who is sending his product to those cities will have to pay for my return journey.
Yes.
But if there was cargo to be carried from the other side, then maybe your rate will be shared out and evened out, because I have to cover my cost. There are some lanes, and you mentioned Southern Africa, the Republic of South Africa. Between Kenya and South Africa, that's one lane that the rates are comparatively low. In the industry, we say per kilometer, air kilometer, it's one of the least in the world. Why? Because there is trade on both sides. And there is capacity. We send our vegetables and whatever other products or even transiting goods to Johannesburg or to South Africa, and we come back with car parts, we come back with fruits, we come back with concentrate for the Coca-Cola and other beverage. So the rates are evened out. So one area which we need to do is to open up trade amongst Africans. And then also, there's this view, and it's a notion, especially more on the passenger, but also on the cargo side, where the air travel or air transport is viewed as an elitist kind of transport, and is taxed heavily. And sometimes the taxes are not the direct tax. There are other barriers, there are other charges. In Africa, we create those barriers for ourselves, making it expensive to operate. How
do we create those barriers? And then are we talking to one another? Because I would assume that there's fora whereby there's intra-governmental discussions about how these barriers then can be removed. How do we create those barriers that then stops this from happening, that would then open up the door for some of these things to then take place?
Good question. First is a protectionism mindset, where if we have our carrier, we want to protect our airline, or just generally, viewing the aviation industry as an area which is, as I said, elitist, so we can be taxed and the like. And some of the barriers is, if you look at the fuel, the aviation fuel, the prices per gallon in Africa is the highest compared to other regions because there are taxes there. Then the levies, which are levied at the various ports, the navigational cost, the landing, the parking, the handling. I'll tell you, Jomo Kenyatta, and in Kenya, and maybe I could mention South Africa, where things are liberalized, you find the costs are lower. You go to another country, for somebody who will offload and load your aircraft, it's only the monopoly. You take it or leave it. What they charge you is what? If you come to Nairobi, there are almost 6-7 handlers you can choose. So the rates in Nairobi compared to other, even neighboring countries, could be a fifth. So I think at governmental areas and those people, the people who are discussing the African Continental Free Trade Area, they need to address those things and say, how do we really open up without just opening up in words, but opening up trade amongst us. And that will lower costs, I believe.
Road transportation on this continent, if you look at the logistical costs,
yes,
say in the Western world, it is a single-digit percentile.
Yes.
Ours, if you compare to even Asia, not even the West, it is 40 to 100% difference. So just the cost of moving goods from one place to the other raises the cost. So it clearly has a very direct effect on even the trade that we'll be doing among ourselves.
Yes.
Partly, the infrastructure, partly just this nonsensical way in which we do business. Yes, it is nonsensical because you'll find this country as a cartel which does God knows what.
Yes.
You cross the border, there's another group of people who do something. So the standardization that some of these countries have, we don't have.
Yeah.
Do you know what's interesting? In 1968, thereabout, one of the presidents of West Africa said how it is cheaper to call France than it is to call the country next door. Then if you look at all the roads in Africa and all the trains, they lead outside of Africa.
Yes.
Yeah, they all go towards the ports and things like that. And one of the things that Africa has not done is it's not valued its own trade at all. We've not prioritized it. It's not just about cartels. It's also about the tariffs. It's also about the obvious what do you call it? I'll not call it patriotism, but the obvious disdain for African countries among themselves. Yes. It is so bad, in fact.
Is it not with good reason, though, Mark?
No, let me give you an example.
If the leadership of a country is a cartel,
cost the same as a ticket to Dubai?
Let me ask the question again. If the leadership of a country is a cartel, okay?
Yes.
All the other cartels that you speak of pale in significance compared to it. And on this continent, it is the bane of our existence. Is it not?
We have horrible and indisciplined leaders. That is not a lie. However, even for those cartels, it will behoove them to make sure that it is easy to trade with Africans. It is in the bigger, the richest continent by resources in this world is Africa, right? The continent with the youngest people, with the strongest people, with the biggest genetic diversity, with the people who can run the fastest and the people who can run the longest, and the people who are the tallest in the world and the people who are the shortest in the world. They're all in Africa.
Tallest, the Dutch have that cup.
No. We have by tribe, we have some of the tallest people in the world.
Yes, but on average, the Dutch take that cup, and they're followed by Americans.
And we have the shortest people as well.
Oh, that we do.
Yes, right. We have the shortest people. So the point being that Africa has both the human resource and the future and the resources. The problem is this: that even if you run a cartel, your cartel should be Afrocentric. If we keep using the resources and being able to solve the logistics of Africa to Africans, there's a lot more money to be unlocked than there is actually to look east or west, and that's what we need to push for. And it is important, and I'm saying this on behalf of KQ. It is important that Africa opens up itself for Africans.
Dickson, I have to then take that, and then now that your spokesman has spoken for you, bring it back and say, look, is that potential seen? And as these conversations are being had, is it realized that really the largest potential that you have to be able to maybe turn things around quicker is actually right here? Is that seen?
Yeah, I agree, though, that the potential has been seen, and actually there is movement to realize the potential, and deliberate movement, and I think we see the result. And allow me to thank Mark, because he has actually summed it up. There is hope. Let's not, yes, we can talk about the negatives, but there is hope in Africa. One, the generation that you're talking about, the youthful generation, average age of 19 years and the like, they are tech savvy. The penetration of technology and mobile, usage is going to drive that demand for, things African. I look for a day when my sister here will be able to get an ingredient for the akupu, meal and the goosey soup.
Yes.
Delivered just the way she likes it. We'll be connecting cultures. Delivered from Enugu or somewhere. Within 48 hours, she has it here in Nairobi.
You should see her smile.
Yeah. I also look forward to that day.
And it's happening because we soon going to, as Kenya is going to launch a trading platform soon, and my boss will be talking about it as it comes out. Be something which has been in the cooking, where we want to enable people to trade, and also looking at African trading. When we talk of e-commerce, and e-commerce is growing big, is big, but let's not be a consumer, mentality. We are consuming things made by others. Why can't we also use this e-commerce platform to trade the things that we love? My brother here can get his, nice Nigerian dress or Ghanaian attire.
He likes hats from Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, all that art from there, and delivered to it. And we trade among ourselves. So there is hope in Africa. Let me tell you one thing which most people don't know. Zambia has become big in breeding of chicken. The import the pedigrees from Europe and America and distribute to Africa, and is a growing thing. Why couldn't we, comparative advantage as we talk in economics, leverage on that and not try to do everything that your neighbor is doing. You want to compete. Let's have the comparative advantage and trade and exchange goods and services, and Africa will grow. And Kenya Airways is supposed to, lash into that.
Kenya Airways, I speak as somebody who consumed this in the past tense, the services religiously, okay? It's a fantastic airline. Fantastic, literally fantastic. But Kenya Airways is part of the larger picture of the Kenyan economy, the larger picture of the East African economy, and how we think, and how we internalize and how we operationalize our thinking. Because We have problems trading in East Africa. Every once in a while, there's a spat between us and Tanzania over chicken. Then we have a spat between us and Uganda over God knows what else. Before we dream of the continent, can we just sort out these little things we have internally? Kenya Airways has been a preferred airline for most Africans on this continent. Preferred. And for good reasons. Efficient.
Yeah.
The food is excellent. First of all, there's a breakfast that they offer on your flight to Oliver Tambo. Anyway. You see, the thinking and the implementation must marry. These wide-bodied aircrafts that we keep speaking of, we must buy them. Because the cost of these airlines and that of the Dreamline that we have 9 of, believe me, it's not that big. But it's in the hundreds of millions of US dollars, by the way, okay?
Yes.
250 going upwards.
Yeah.
Okay. But the comparative advantage you speak of will be gained if we have, even if we had 2 of these wide-bodied aircrafts, it would make a huge difference.
Yes.
All right. I mean, we're winding down this conversation, but I mean, just to hear from you in terms of what we're looking forward to in the future, what could happen and how are we going to approach this?
Thank you. Allow me just to say thank you for inviting me. And I believe that Kenya Airways is rising, and Kenya Airways Cargo is going to be a big part in that. Just to inform you, we have Air Cargo Africa, which is like a meeting of air cargo practitioners, which happens every 2 years, and is coming back home. It started in Nairobi 14 years ago. In 2011. It's now coming back home. Let's believe that it's coming back home to cement, and it will be a catalyst for our conversation, as the city says, of how we can believe in ourselves, how we can trade together. So from 19th to 21st at the Storage Center, various practitioners in the supply chain world, air cargo, logistics will be there. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. Asante Sana. Dickson Murianki is the Director Cargo Kenya Airways. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.